So here we are, working on the landscape, the second session, I think that's what I'm talking about.
We've switched places.
That's right. I'm going to landscape your dwelling place here, this rather lovely garden shed you have over here. Just adding another tree. This reminds me of when you were younger. Do you remember that time when you and a friend of yours were sunbathing in the garden? And I was working in this studio where we are now, which is sort of shielded from the, or used to be, the tree's since fallen down, but there was a great big tree that, a little bit like the tree I'm drawing now, completely sort of shielded the studio from the garden. So you weren't aware, if you were in the garden, that there was a studio at the bottom of the garden. And I used to emerge from the bushes at the bottom of the garden, along the garden path, and I did this once, and you and your friend were sunbathing, and your friend looked up, saw me emerging from the bushes and screamed.
Yeah.
And the thing that I always take away from it was your reaction, where you just sort of looked up at me, sort of, in a really bored way, and said, "Oh, that's just my dad," and didn't explain that I was working at the bottom of the garden rather than lurking in the bushes.
He's just a creep at the bottom of the garden.
Yeah,
Don't mind him.
It's just what he does, apparently.
It's just, doesn't your dad do that?
I've told that story a few times, actually.
I was going to say, maybe
to audiences.
Maybe everyone on Patreon who follows us knows that story already, because you tell that story a lot.
Well, I used to when I was out and about. It's been a while since I've been doing things in public, as it were. But I'm going to be at the National Theatre next Tuesday.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you weren't going.
No. The gig that I was doing, that was going to do this week, that got cancelled.
Oh, that was the one you were going to bring me to.
Yeah.
So what are you doing at the National Theatre?
It's like a poetry thing. You're very welcome to come along to that if you fancy it.
When is it?
Next Tuesday, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah, well, think about it. Yeah.
Maybe. Is it like an evening thing?
Ish. I don't think it's late. I think it's about 6 o'clock or something.
Okay.
So I don't think it's a late one. And it's actors reading poems.
And then you're gonna do live drawing to it.
Yeah. And there was going to be like a reception and drinks and stuff afterwards, but with all the COVID business, they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
One day.
Oh, maybe I'll come to that.
The last time I did one of these things, I at the drinks afterwards, I ran into David Cameron.
Did you?
Yes. And the funny thing was, I walked
did you
in,
say?
I was quite early to the drinks because lots of people were, still filing out. And so I had to get away because I was going to a literary festival down in Dorset. And so I just showed up just to be polite, just for a few minutes. And the only other person there was David Cameron, which was very funny.
Did you have some interesting small talk?
Yeah, I came up, I said
did you
hello.
say I've drawn you many a time?
I did. I led with that. That was the first thing I said. And, he smiled in that polite way politicians do, where they're thinking, "Who the hell is this?" Yeah. But he was impeccably sort of, behaved as you would expect an old Etonian, or at least that old Etonian. And I don't know, it was quite fun. And then his daughter turned up because he'd taken his daughter to this poetry event, and she was a fan of Goth Girl.
Oh,
The Goth Girl books, yeah. Nancy Cameron. So that was a
So
funny
are you
thing.
trying to say that you're good friends with David Cameron, huh?
No, not really. No, I wouldn't ever say that. I mean, I have shared a joke with Boris Johnson's sister, Rachel, who's not at all like her brother.
What, she's not a massive Tory?
No.
Are you sure?
I'm not exactly sure, but I don't think she necessarily has the same views as her brother. She's quite
Must
funny.
be an awkward Christmas then.
Oh, I don't know. I suppose within families you can have different political beliefs, can't you? It's just that in our house everyone seems to be a sort of fairly left wing,
Yeah,
which is fortunate, I suppose.
I guess so, yeah.
In fact, I'm probably the sort of lily-livered liberal amongst everyone.
You're the liberal.
Yeah. I mean, with the small L, I don't Labour sporting. But you have a sort of vegan philosophy, don't you? Which I think must be about, sort of food standards and...
Yeah, but I don't think that's like a political party.
No, it's not,
to
but
be
it
vegan.
has a political dimension, doesn't
I
it? In
guess
terms
so,
of
yeah.
how you feel the world should be ordered and...
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. It does.
I'm doing little sort of copses of trees on top of hills. But I've got a feeling, oh look, there's a little town emerging.
Well, I don't really know what
Or maybe a hamlet.
Some kind of...
Yeah.
I don't really... didn't have a lot of building knowledge, so I'm just,
Well, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's got... I mean, this is when you draw maps like this, there's a really nice sort of ideogrammatic quality, the notion of the drawn, drawing geographical features, drawing topology, I think is really nice. That's what I love about those old maps where they actually, where there's a city, they draw a tiny little city.
yeah.
And where there's a mountain, they'll draw mountains. Those are the days.
You don't get them anymore.
Well, before the Ordnance Survey map of Middle Earth came in. Actually, Middle Earth, this beautiful, beautiful map of Middle Earth was drawn by Pauline Baynes, a wonderful illustrator who illustrated the Narnia books.
Oh, yeah.
But she also did a beautiful version of Middle Earth. I said Middle Earth.
It's yours.
Yes. Very different place. And I once went to a party, and I'm name dropping like crazy today.
I was going to say, you are, aren't you?
But I once went to a party in Holland Park in this amazing house where this painter, Lord Leighton, lived. Beautiful, sort of
Who's
neo...
Lord Leighton?
He was a Victorian painter,
Okay.
very academic, not as sort of fast and loose as the pre-Raphaelites, much more establishment.
Yeah.
But he lived in this amazing sort of Orientalist house. It was just full of extraordinary mosaics and courtyards and you name it, in a huge place. Also a venue for sort of publishing parties. And I went to the Penguin party, I think, which was there. And as I came in, I was a little late, and as I came in, Pauline Baynes was leaving, because she's a very shy woman and didn't really like parties very much, but I recognised her, because I knew her from sort of photographs and things. And I couldn't resist rushing up and just sort of being all, sort of saying how much I loved her work, I was much younger then. And she just looked suitably embarrassed and hurried off. But I was so pleased I was able to meet one of my heroes.
What else did she illustrate?
She did all the Narnia books.
Yeah.
And she did the map in one of the editions of Lord of the Rings, and a very beautiful coloured map that I think was sold separately. I had it on my wall as a kid. And I don't know what other things she did. I think she did illustrate other books, but those are her famous ones. Now, Katie, this looks like some sort of mountain gorge, doesn't it?
I think that's where I was going with it.
Oh, good. Okay, well, I'm going to sort of do a sort of
So
torrential, like, river flowing. It's almost as if the river is emerging, you know, through some sort of tunnel system.
yes, that's.
Okay, so it's a bit of civil engineering.
I know you. Yeah, you're quite good. I don't really know
How to
I don't know, make things work like that.
well, you just wing
I
it.
don't really know
You know,
what's
a lot
going
of
on here.
yeah. No, I think you wing it in a way, and you see what emerges, particularly when you're drawing freestyle like this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, part of the fun is just seeing what actually happens. At the moment, we're being quite almost sort of conventional, aren't we? There are no sort of floating rocks or
That's
impossible craggy.
Well, that's very you.
mountaintops.
I'm surprised you haven't done a floating rock.
Yes, I'm restraining myself at the moment. I'm just carrying out some very necessary architectural repairs to your mansion here. It's like Escape from the Chateau, but in like pen and ink. I love that program, Escape to the Chateau. When I don't watch it very often, but when I do, it's always so lovely to see what they're doing there. But what a pain to actually live in a giant house like that.
Well, I think they only live in like a bit of it, don't they? Because the rest of it is just rented out for weddings and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Also, can you imagine being there like on your own?
Yeah, that'd be so creepy.
So spooky.
So creepy.
I think there should be some sort of spin-off, which is like a horror film, like No Escape from the Chateau.
That's clever.
Oh, thank you. I hope you're taking notes. These are all very, very useful ideas.
So, what have you been working on today then?
I've been doing the cover for the literary review, which is a job I've been doing since the early 90s, and they still pay me the same amount of money.
But they let you use their
Palace in
palace
Venice.
in Venice.
I know, that's one of the perks of
So
the job.
that's all right.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Me too.
Yeah, good. The editor has this beautiful. Well, her husband owns a beautiful palace in Venice, which I'm allowed to stay in from time to time if I ask really nicely.
God, that'd be the dream, wouldn't it? Owning a palace in Venice.
Well, it's a little bit like the chateau. I get the feeling it's probably, a lot of work, and
yeah.
In
But
fact,
maybe if you own a palace, you probably have enough money to upkeep the palace, don't you?
To a certain extent, but my editor was saying that they have this amazing drawing room with ancient, sort of 18th century silk wall coverings.
Oh, wow.
So instead of wallpaper, it's actually the walls are covered in silk, and it's like a sort of embroidered silk. It's an amazing thing, and it's been there for 200 years or something.
Yeah.
And so it's getting a little bit sort of careworn. But to renovate it, to have it sort of like redone, repaired sensitively, it would cost 200,000 quid. Can you imagine spending that
Oh
on
my god.
on wallpaper? So you just
Wow.
basically they curate it as best they can, but because it's a private palace.
Yeah. So do they not rent it out or anything, or they just kind of?
No,
Have it
it's
as their own
it's
little-
huge. So other branches of the family live there as well.
Oh wow.
So they.
Oh, I see.
each
So it's
have-
like separated into
yeah, because it's
kind of flats and
it's I mean, I wouldn't say it's Buckingham Palace, but it is a palace. It's big. It's got
Yeah.
about 100 rooms and things. So you could easily fit sort of 5 houses in there. And their apartment there is big.
yeah. Wow. So when you stayed in it, was it just like one part of just like a small part of the palace then?
Well, it was the frontage essentially, which is magnificent. It's got a great big balcony and It's right at the head of the Grand Canal, and you often see it when you see like tourist films about Venice. They often sort of show it. You look at it and go, "Oh, look, that's the palace." It is amazing. But yeah, so that's one of the perks of working for the Literary Review. And
Quite a good perk.
this month I'm illustrating a book all about the way that Chinese has been, the written language has been simplified in order to be printed, and sort of fit on typewriters and stuff. So the
You're
Chinese.
illustrating.
I'm illustrating that concept.
Oh wow.
I know.
What?
Not easy.
What's that for?
It's a book. It's a book that they're reviewing. It sounds fascinating.
I see. So how did you do that then?
I drew a sort of modern day Chinese person sitting at a typewriter, modern-ish, 1960s, sort of sitting at a typewriter. And then next to him is a scholar, a sort of classical Chinese scholar with a scroll and brush. And the scholar is writing out the old style Chinese characters, and the chap at the typewriter is typing the new, simplified characters side by
Well,
side.
Harry would probably want to read that.
Yeah, I think it'd be
Sounds-
really.
Sounds interesting.
Yes, he's fluent Chinese, Mandarin speaker, isn't he? In the background, the thing I'm going to enjoy doing, because I'm halfway through, I've inked it all in, I've now got to do the watercolour. But I want to do like a Chinese watercolour thing of sort of misty mountains and, sort of landscape actually,
Yeah.
which is not dissimilar to what we're doing here, but, in the Chinese style.
Yeah.
Behind the scholar, and then behind the chap on the typewriter, I'm going to do a sort of modern Chinese industrial landscape, sort of smoking chimneys and things to represent, the old and the new.
Yeah. That sounds pretty good.
But I'll do all that in watercolour, so it'll be quite nice and loose. And
Yeah.
so yes, I'll see how that turns out. And then this morning, Katie, I woke up really early and just did 3 like really menacing characters,
What were they?
like a sort of
I see that one. I don't think so.
like a vampire type figure, and
This was in bed.
yeah,
Yeah.
and a mermaid who's like got a fish in her mouth, sort of quite a sort of feral mermaid, and then a sort of Celtic Valkyrie style goddess, a goddess of war, sort of gathering skulls off a battlefield.
Oh.
So yeah, ordinary
What?
night's sleep.
Were you illustrating some of your disturbing dreams or something?
No, not even that. I just picked up a brush pen, and it just felt really nice. The brush pen just felt really nice, and so I just sort of did a few little drawings, almost automatically, and it just, these things flowed out. I thought, oh yes, that's what I'm drawing today. Disturbing female.
What's going on in your
Spectres, yeah.
subconscious mind?
Well, this is the problem. It's not a problem, but it's a thing that you might say that. But it's one of those things that where you do express yourself, I think, when you draw, and I think that's why many people are self-conscious about picking up a pen and.
Because they're afraid.
Yeah, because it can be very revealing in some ways. People, I suppose, would be afraid to sort of draw something too childish, or childlike. They'll feel their technique isn't right, and yet, there are some fantastic drawings done by sort of adults that still retain a sort of childlike quality. I think that's really special, and I think there are many people never draw because they're afraid of exactly that.
Yeah.
I think also, you start to draw a certain thing, it might reveal something about you, sort of. So people, not sure they want to express
art,
themselves.
like art therapy and
Yeah, and yet again, those are the sort of things that are the most interesting. And I think one should just allow that. Right, I'm going to put a bend in the river. You can see down here, I'm getting down to our borders because,
you're so much faster than me.
well, there's plenty to cover.
Just all that confidence, isn't it?
But also,
Probably
Katie, what
really.
you're doing is the hard yards, which is the sort of detail stuff. So it's nice to have both the broad brush, even though we're both using dip pens, but the broader stuff, and then nice little details. I think it balances. I like your little sort of settlement up here as well.
What else do you have in a landscape? What can I think of?
You can have rolling hills are quite nice, like a series of rolling hills are always quite enjoyable. There's a movie called the now I'm going to forget what it's called. You know, the one with Benedict Cumberbatch as the cowboy. Benedict Cumberbatch as the cowboy in
Oh no,
Wyoming.
I haven't watched that yet.
Something of the dog, or
Yeah, I know which one you mean.
yeah, the Jane Campion film.
Me and Harry are going to watch that, so don't give anything away.
I won't, except to say it's got some amazing hills. Like behind that, it's like, it looks like a flat sort of, you know, carpet that's been folded. You know, quite extraordinary, and to look at, particularly with the light, there's certain sort of I don't know whether it's a sort of summer light or a autumn light, but
Yeah.
everything is cast with these amazing sculptural shadows, and it's both huge, but it also looks like a sort of bedspread that's been crumpled. So look out for some spectacular hills.
Yeah, I do. I really want to watch that.
So yes, draw some spectacular hills, Katie. That's what I think.
Well, I'm drawing hills. I don't know how spectacular they'll be. But there'll be something, some kind of.
Also, you should maybe do one of your what's on the drawing board segments, because you've got quite a few things coming up.
Well, yeah, I was gonna show the rest of Penguin and the Piper because I finished it now.
I think it's looking great,
So
particularly like your
that'll be a
Penguin
video,
Den papers.
Yeah, that I'll go through.
Yeah, no, that'll be
I
nice.
think this week. Just as an update. But yeah, I've just got the cover to do now. I'm just waiting kind of for a response.
Okay, right now, look, I'm just now. Look, it's all happening now. Oh my goodness.
Is that a volcano?
Yes, you gotta have like some super massive, craggy volcano. Look, there it is, towering above our lovely idyllic scene. The sort of volcano that you like, sacrifice people to. I did a book with Neil Gaiman called Fortunately the Milk,
Oh yeah.
and there's a character
Quite
in
an
it.
old one, isn't it?
It is quite an old one, and in it there's a character called Splod, the volcano god. He's a one-eyed volcano god. It's quite fun. And at one point, the father, who I based on Neil Gaiman, is going to be sacrificed to Splod, the volcano god.
What's the? Have you done any recent ones with Neil Gaiman? What was the last one you did?
The last one I did was the Art Matters,
Oh,
which
yeah.
oh no, of course not. No, I've done a much more recent one. In fact,
Oh.
last year, which is Pirate Stew.
Stew.
Yeah, which is a lovely picture book. Great fun. Kept me busy during lockdown.
Oh God, was that over lockdown?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole thing was done over lockdown, so we were all living in this horrible sort of uncertain world, including Neil, who got trapped in New Zealand and then in the Isle of Skye. You know, he had a weird lockdown.
I guess New Zealand's not a bad place to.
New Zealand's lovely, But so's the Isle of Skye. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. So lovely places to be sort of locked down in, but at the same time,
But
we
weird
all
when you don't have a choice to.
yeah, and we
can't
all
leave.
had that strange, sort of feeling of uncertainty and what the hell is happening, which is never nice. So I think we've done a good stint here. I think the next instalment, I think, will be sort of maybe. I'm looking forward to your sister volcano, Katie, to sort of maybe, or maybe a plateau, maybe some sort of exotic jungle fringed plateau, or maybe the Misty Mountains
Right.
rising up. So there's a nice quadrant up there to. Whilst I'll busy myself with maybe some of the hinterland down here, sort of little. I haven't done a single dwelling place in this session, so
All right.
I
Well,
like that.
that'll
Nice
be-
little escarpment going on there. Yeah, and a balloon. You've actually got around the world in 80 days balloon going on.
Yeah, hasn't set up
Excellent.
just yet.
Excellent. I think I'm just going to do a sort of little volcanic lake just nesting in here. And one of the things we might decide, let's see how we go, but maybe in the last session on this landscape, we should turn it into a metaphorical landscape.
In what way?
Well, we should
Are you
begin
gonna name
naming
things?
things. Yeah, I think that's always amusing.
Yes, all right then.
The volcano of latent ambition.
Right.
The tower of regret.
Well, that's till next time.
Fantastic. Well, that's a good session. I enjoyed that. Plenty of hatching going on, and you've done some excellent work over here.
Yeah, it's coming together.
Perfect.